When is the last time you spoke to Hillary Rodham Clinton?
I spoke to her and President Clinton at the Wednesday night gala of the great foundation that does a lot of good works, and we should talk about that subject, but it was last Wednesday night, John.
Last Wednesday night. Okay, so recently. Okay, so various outlets, as we said earlier in the show, are reporting that Secretary Clinton is going to do a press conference or do some kind of a media availability in the next couple days here in New York to address this email controversy. I'm curious what you think she needs to get done. What's the work she needs to get done at that press conference? How should she do it?
Well, I have no direct confirmation of that. I'm a friend, and I have no official status. Let me just clear that up.
Yeah.
But the answer is she simply has to answer the question, why did you do it, with both official and private messages on one BlackBerry. And I'm guessing that her answer is going to be nothing nefarious, because the facts don't support that nefarious interpretation. It's going to be just purely convenience, easier to do it that way, knowing they would have to be separated out and turned over to the department at some point between personal and business, and that's exactly what happened.
But she's not, new to this, Lanny. It makes you wonder, like, why? I mean, for the sake of convenience, really? She knows that she sort of has an obligation to history and the role she's in to make sure that information is available to everyone. It's hard. I mean, it's just hard to imagine that you're going to make a decision like that for the sake of convenience.
Well, if she knows at the time, which I believe she did, that nothing is deletable, all is recoverable, and that she intended to turn everything over, and she did. The only Secretary of State asked by the State Department to do so is Hillary Clinton, and she's now said make them all public, and they have to be preservable, recoverable. There's no delete argument or fact here. I don't think she did anything illegal. We have the top lawyer of the Archives Administration, quoted by the New York Times, by the way, and he says on CNN last Saturday she did nothing illegal. She just didn't see it that way,
Lanny,
Campbell.
Put aside the question of legality and just think about the spirit of the law. It's not particularly convenient to go and get an IT department to build a server at your home where you can establish a parallel email operation. The government has an email operation that's already there that's secure. The convenient thing to do would have been to take the State Department email. So she built a separate thing for some reason. We don't know for what reason. I'm curious, she has not turned over all of her emails. She's turned over 55,000 pages of them, but not all of them. Why should she be in the position of determining which of the emails she has to turn over and which she's allowed to retain which she currently has full control over, and nobody has any idea what's in them? Why should she be the one to make that determination?
Let me start with your last question, but you said a few things I'd like to respectfully take issue with. Why should she be the only one? Well, like everybody else, whether it's Colin Powell or any other Secretary of State who used private emails, they're going to be asked what was private and what was official if they use both the State Department system and their own private system. So everyone's in the same boat. As to whether or not she will be second-guessed on 55,000, and 90% of all those emails, she's already said, went to State Department people using her email address. So everybody who received those emails not only knew that she was using it, but has it on their servers. I think that she would say, I've turned everything over, I'm ready to make them public, and I don't see I've done anything wrong or definitely nothing illegal, according to the top lawyer of the Archives Administration.
Well, Lanny, if you were advising her, I mean, what would you have told her to do in this moment? You would have advised her to go forward the way she had?
Put on my crisis manager hat for a second with the wisdom of hindsight, and I know both of you, and you know that I'm always get it out early yourself. That was a book I wrote. So in this case, with the wisdom of hindsight, immediately let everybody know you're doing this and get every possible email out. And in answer to John's question, if the State Department looks at those 55,000 and says, we'd like to check the ones you didn't give us, the 10% that you didn't send to State Department officials, she's got to say yes to that. If a congressional subpoena asks for those 10%, she's got to look at the subpoena and respond to it in an appropriate fashion. So I don't see any illegality, cover-up, or could I just address, I'm sorry to go on, the issue of security, John, and you mentioned that. Well, so sure, you could. Can I please just address that quickly? I do not accept, I don't think you do either, that her server was less secure than the State Department's server, and if you're not convinced of that, let me use one word, WikiLeaks, or another name, Snowden.
All right,
so
fair enough.
Security is probably equal in or less than great in either place.
Let me just ask you a last question. You have a PhD in Clinton's scandology, right? You've seen it all. the cattle futures, the White House Travel Office, Whitewater, the Rose Law Firm billing records, all of them, right? Where at this point do you think, in terms of severity, political severity, not legal, political, where do you think this ranks relative to those other scandals or faux scandals from Clinton years past?
Definitely, my opinion, down about where the travel office was, which is much ado about nothing. But let me remind you of a major scandal, grand jury, special prosecutor, thousands of column inches, headlines, and the possibility of a criminal indictment called Whitewater. That was so serious that after $70 million, Ken Starr's successor said, no wrongdoing. That's after 3 years of near hysteria in the media.
Lanny?
This would be way, way behind Whitewater, in my opinion.